during this seminar, we will guide you through the process of applying to our ongoing grant calls. And we'll also guide you through the process and give a hands-on demonstration of the application scheme. My name is Lise Bollum. I'm an advisor here at the research section at the Norwegian Cancer Society, and together with my co-workers Torunn and Kristin, we will guide you through this process for the next couple of hours. The Norwegian Cancer Society is one of Norway's largest NGOs, and we support all kinds of cancer research. Annually, we fund cancer research amounting to around 214 million Norwegian kroners. The majority of our research funds are based on donations collected through regular memberships, campaigns, estates, and so on. Throughout the year, we have several calls and measures through which we fund cancer research. Most of our funds are granted through our researcher project grant calls, such as the already completed cancer prevention call, open call, Pink Ribbon, which is a collaboration with the Norwegian Breast Cancer Society, Opptak mot kreft, and additionally, we also have the Pioneer Awards, which is a pilot and innovation call. And last but not least, we also have the annual King Olav V's Cancer Research Prize, where nominations open in fall. Additionally, I would also like to mention a few collaborations and external grants that may be of interest to our applicants. This includes various collaborations which we have with, for instance, denne, which has a grant call based on local healthcare services. We have the EU grant, Transcan 3. We have the NCU, which focuses on clinical epidemiology. And additionally, we would also like to make you aware of the grant challenges called by Cancer Research UK. However, I think it's time to dive into the calls which we are going to guide you through today. This year's, the topic for today's presentation is Open Call 2021 and Opptak mot kreft, both which have their deadlines on the 1st of June. I will start by saying a little bit about Open Call 2021. Open Call 2021 is together combined with the Pink Ribbon and baked into one single call. Open Call has a budget frame of 130 million Norwegian kroner, whereas Pink Ribbon, which this year is focused on personalized breast cancer treatment, has a budget of 26.7 million Norwegian kroner. For both calls or for both types of applications, you may apply for between 1 and 8 million Norwegian kroner. And it is important to keep in mind that when applying for Open Call, you may not have an overlapping project period with other Open Call projects ongoing. However, should you have a Pink Ribbon project, this is okay. I will also briefly mention Opptak mot kreft. This is our grant call based on our annual donations campaign. And this year's theme is cancer types with low survival. And here we grant a total of 20 million Norwegian kroner. The focus of this call is brain, lung, pancreatic, and esophageal cancers. And here you may apply for between 1 and 5 million Norwegian kroners. Also worth noting about Opptak mot kreft is that it's okay to already have ongoing projects. And particularly for this call is that you are also allowed to apply for PhD positions, unlike Open Call. However, as all these calls have the same deadline, it is very important to mention that every single project manager may only submit one proposal, and therefore you must carefully consider which call is better suited for your particular project and apply for that one. You're of course welcome to ask us questions both during this seminar and later in case there is something that is unclear or something you would like some clarifications about. I will now guide you through the process of this year's grant call. We are currently in the first slot here, which is the call period. These calls opened in March and will remain open until the 1st of June. This is where you write and submit your applications to Open Call and Krafttak mot kreft. We would like to remind you that there is a lot of information we have available on our websites, which will help you in the process of writing this application. We have the application guidelines, and there's also a lot of information in the application scheme. And even though we will go through all of this today, we advise you to read these documents carefully. The next step is the deadline, which is on the 1st of June. We would like to just clarify that you may edit and make amendments to your application all the way until the deadline. However, after this deadline, the button is passed on to us in the administration, the research section in the Norwegian Cancer Society. This is where we will go through your applications and check them administratively. And this is also the part where, based on the information you provide in section 2, we will get back to what section 2 means later on. We may also reallocate your projects based on how well you fit with the various peer review committees. After we have done this step, this is where the peer reviewers and the user representatives will gain access to your proposals. And thus begins the evaluation period. This is from June until August. Here, the peer reviewers will read and assess your proposals, and they will grade them based on cancer relevance and on 4 different evaluation criteria, which I will get back to in more detail later. You will also receive a score from between 1 and 7, where 1 is the lowest and 7 is the best. This is also where the user representatives will start reading your applications, and they have their own set of assessment criteria, which I also will get back to later in more detail. And they will also give your application a score between 1 and 7. After the evaluation process, we begin a period of peer review committee meetings. These meetings will be held in August and September. During these meetings, the peer review committee members will meet and discuss their evaluations and will find a consensus and give you a final score. They will also make a ranked list from each peer review committee group. And this list will serve as a foundation for the next step, which is the decision step. This is made during a board meeting, which will be held in October. Based on the ranked list by the peer review committee and a recommendation from the research section, the board will confirm the results from these meetings. And once the board has made a decision, we will start reaching out to you. In October, you will learn the result from your application. You will know whether or not you will receive funding, whether your project has been waitlisted, or whether your project did not make it this time around. This is also where you will receive feedback from the peer review committee. They will give you a short comment about the good, the bad, and the room for improvement. Following the feedback stage, we move on to the next stage, which is divided into 2 parts. Should you not receive funding, this is the part where you may complain. However, it's very important to keep in mind that we do not accept complaints based on the scientific verdict. We only accept complaints based on administrative error. However, should your project be granted, this is where the paperwork starts, so to speak. You will receive your contract, which must be filled in and returned to us. Should you have received any budget cuts, this is also where you will revise and resubmit your budget. Furthermore, should you have any double financing, this is also where you will declare that to us. And last but not least, this is also where you submit collaboration agreements. In case any of you wonder when and how and what to deal with collaboration agreements means, we will also get back to this later during this presentation. I have now guided you through the process. And I believe that many of you may have applied to our calls previously, but there are probably some new faces as well. But to those of you who are veterans, so to speak, you may have noticed that there are a few changes to our applications this year, and I will briefly talk about what this means. We have made a few changes to this application procedure and our structure because we believe that we could make this even better than it has been before. Initially, I will briefly talk about indication of peer review committees. As before, you will select a peer review committee which you believe is the better suited to your project. However, it is important to keep in mind that, as opposed to previous years, we now have the freedom to reallocate the applications to match an application to the best suited peer reviewers. And this is because we want you to receive the best evaluation possible. In order to do this, you will also fill in a multiple choice field, which creates a research profile for a project. And we will use this to match with the peer reviewers which are well suited to evaluate your particular proposal. Next, we have the peer review committees, of which there are 4 this year. We have new definitions for the committees this year, which we once again believe will make it easier for us to group similar projects together. Additionally, we also open up for subcategorization. This means that should one committee receive too large a number of applications, we may split this committee into subgroups based on similarity between applications. We have also improved and clarified the evaluation criteria, which I will get back to shortly. There have also been a few new additions to user involvement. They have also received new assessment criteria and grading definitions. And the next user involvement will also from this year on be described in full in the application form, which we will show you later during the hands-on part of this seminar. The new committee structure as of 2021 is as follows. Group number 1, I will just briefly present the 4 groups for you. Group number 1 this year is called Understanding Cancer and Treatment Targets. Number 2 is called Diagnosis, Screening, Prognosis, and Markers for Treatment Stratification. Number 3 is called Development of Treatments. And number 4 is called Clinical Intervention and Epidemiological Studies, Healthcare and Social Sciences Research. Those who have applied to us during previous years may notice that these are quite similar. However, new this year is that these are more closely based on the HRCS categories, and we believe that this will make it easier for us to group similar projects together and put together an even more tight and unified peer review committee group. So this is in order to make evaluations even better and even more consistent than they have been before. I will also now guide you through the evaluation criteria. The evaluation criteria are the same as they have been before, but we have updated the description. And there are 5 different evaluation criteria. There is relevance to the call, which is a yes or no criteria. For open call, this means whether or not there is a cancer relevance. However, for the pink ribbon part of open call, this means that there must be a personalized breast cancer focus. And for Krafttak mot kreft, this relevance means whether or not there is a relation to the 4 cancer groups outlined previously in this seminar. The 4 additional criteria will be weighted throughout the entire application. So it is important to keep in mind that there is not one single chapter or paragraph where you're supposed to assess, for instance, scientific quality or impact, but it's important that this is addressed sufficiently and relevantly throughout the entire application. This is how the peer reviewers will read and score your application. It is also important to keep in mind as that criterion 2 and 3, my apologies, I think I skipped a couple of slides here. We're now back. Scientific quality and qualifications of the project manager and group will be given double weight, whereas the next 2 criteria, feasibility and impact, will be weighted once. The new criteria are supposed to make it easier both for you to understand what is expected of you in order to write a good application, and also to make it easier for the peer reviewers to give you a good, solid evaluation. However, it is not only the peer reviewers who have received the new evaluation criteria this year. Our user representatives will also be given new assessment criteria for your applications this year. They will work in parallel with the peer reviewers and will assess 3 different criteria. And they will assess whether or not user involvement has been implemented at all, whether or not this is feasible, and if it is relevant to this project. And as mentioned previously, they will also give you a score between 1 and 7. And the practical use for the user score is that it will, as already mentioned, often be used to determine how 2 equally ranked proposals should be weighted relative to one another. And last but not least, this is one thing that is not directly related to the application process. But since we're already talking about user involvement, I would just like to bring your attention to a new thing we have at the Norwegian Cancer Society regarding user involvement. We know that many of you may find it challenging to figure out how and when and to what extent user involvement should be implemented. And in order to make this user involvement experience even better, we have now a new user group, which may help you. This is a new offer where you may contact us, and we will set you in, we'll get you in touch with experienced users who can aid you in designing your the user involvement relevant and necessary for your project. We have included a link in this slide, and you will of course gain access to this presentation afterwards. So in case this is interesting or relevant for you, please check this out, and you can contact us to get help with your user involvement. This is the last thing I'm going to say about the application process, and therefore, before we move on to the practical part about the application scheme, I would just like to check if there are any questions, anything you wonder about. Let's see here. It doesn't look like we have any questions so far.
Yes. We have Bo is raising his hand. Please, Bo. You have to mute and unmute if you're up. Okay, so please use the chat if you have any questions throughout the seminar, and we will see whether those questions should be taken immediately or after the meeting, in the end of the meeting. Okay, I think.
Yeah, it looks like we don't have any questions so far. And please just, if you have any questions whatsoever, you may just write this in the chat. And it's okay to write in both English and Norwegian, and we will get back to you throughout the seminar. But if there are no questions as for now about the application procedure, I think we can move on to the application scheme. There is one question. Our project leaders who applied for the prevention call marched and disqualified for open call. You may apply to open call as well.
Yes, definitely.
So this is okay. If you have applied to cancer prevention, you may also apply to open call.
This is the website that you're coming into. If you go, if you log on our website. Please, if you have ever been here before, can you please use your previous user profile? So if you just have forgotten your password, you will be asked, if you see here, you log on you forgot your password and you get a new one. And I never remember my own name, so I have saved it. There we go. Here you will find your calls. You will find the call that you have decided, and then you will apply and you will create your application. I have already done that, and that my draft I would find under applications. My open call is 2021 is here as a draft, and you can both draft and submit and resubmit until the deadline. Please also we ask you to read the instructions, all instructions carefully when you fill in these things. See that we have given your help text in these question marks, and read application guideline and the call text. You will find everything here. Call text is here, application guidelines is in the front page or under the call text. So read carefully, and it may give you a lot of help. Section 1, that is about your project. And remember that the peer reviewers will have access to all these sections. But of course, most of the information is given in the project description. Use the template, it's mandatory. And it's also a lot of help in the project description of where to write what. Are associated with the evaluation. So, but it's not one-to-one. What is kind of new is that all user involvement should be described here in this application scheme. It says here user involvement should be described in full here. So you don't need to be very laboratory to elaborate it very much in the template, in the project description, because the user will read only here. It will not use the template. So our user representatives that is going to assess your user involvement will read this text. And as I said, the peer reviewers will also have access to this one. But if you want to sort of include it in the template, also in the project description, you can just refer to that. It's elaborated in that application scheme. It's a small help text, what to focus on. But again, read application guidelines. There are some more information there. And then we have your project abstract in English. Think congresses, papers, whatever. This is what we want here. We want a short, brief summary of your project, but we have structured it for you because we would like to use these text boxes for other purposes later. This abstract should be structured with these 4 subheadings. And then we come to the Norwegian summary. And please remember, this is not read and evaluated by our peer reviewers. It doesn't have anything to say for your grade, but it has a lot to say for us as a Norwegian Cancer Society, because we want to use this in popular presentations if you're funded. Mm-hmm. So spend some time and be creative to describe your project in a nice and understandable way for the broader audience. The last point here under your project is whether you have innovation potential or not. If yes, you will have another text box where you will specify it. This box will not be disclosed to anybody, so you can write things that you don't want to be published. Also here, we will keep it within our department actually. So this is the project, and then you have the research profile section 2. This is where the most changes has been done for the ones of you who have been applying before to us. Peer review committees, read carefully. You find them here, you find them in application guidelines, and you select one of the 4. The research theme, this big box here, it has been added a multiple choice fields, multiple choice themes. But first you decide which category, HRCS category, your application fits into. There are brief explanation of what that is here, but please, again, you can be well off if you read the online system where you find a link here. So because it makes also, it may help you, both the HRCS and the peer review committees, if you understand the content of what we're sort of, what it covers, it might be more easy to write the impact and to focus your project in your project description. Cancer types, this time it's a very long list because we're using the international system and has been using all the ones, the most common ones for all the difference. Do you, by the way, see when I press this, do you see the selection, the possible selections when I press the?
Yes.
Yes, good, thank you. So choose carefully, and for each of these main categories, you see that there will be a multiple form. And so if you don't find any of your mouth pharynx, use the multiple forms. And the alternative, if it goes for everything, it's relevant for all or multiple cancer types. And we don't have any more not relevant for any, because if you're not relevant for any of these, it's not cancer relevant. So you will find your cancer type here, or it's relevant for all or many. Then we have this multiple choice. It's a scientific field and main methods and treatments. The reason why we have done it like this is when you click here, and again, please highlight relevant, only select a highly relevant keywords for this project. Again, not for your entire work, but for this project, because we want the peer reviewers or your project to be matched with the peer reviewers that have the same background as you're notifying us about here. The peer reviewers from now, they will also fill in this, so we know how to match. So it will be a scientific field, it is the main method, and then you have the treatment. And again, for the treatment, it's just one keyword, it's not multiple choice. Then you have the last one. Do you plan to have clinical data on this? Yes or no? If yes, fill in the clinicaltrials.gov identifier. If you don't have that, you use another registration study register. And we don't ask you, if you don't have it by now, we don't ask you to hurry and find a number and submit, but we will ask for it in the report next year if you are funded. Okay, then we have the project info administration, project owner, decide your site, decide your project administrator coming up here. And if it's no one coming up, if you don't find the one that you think is your project administrator, you have to ask your institution who is the administrator. Project manager, that it would be you maybe, and fill in all these things. The new thing here now is the career stage. We have changed. Previously it was like this: do you have your own group? Are you start initiating your career? Now we have used the international sort of system about talent, established researcher, and excellent researcher. We will use this in our statistics and to, in the future, maybe have some more data on how we want to address young talents, for example. Use templates for CV, upload a list of relevant publications. So again, our peer reviewers, they have access to all this in the same way as you're having, so they will click and can download your uploaded CVs and publication lists. Essential collaborators. This is always a question, and we get a lot of questions about who am I going to fill in here as my collaborators. Just remember, in the end, if you're funded, all collaborators that are written here, you will need to submit a project collaboration agreement with. Also remember that we have emphasized here they should be essential collaborators, because you don't want to have tens of collaboration agreements with different institutions. Really go through your plan and to see who do I really need, who is this project cannot just be carried out without this collaborator. There may be non-essential collaborators that you can still list in your project description, under your work packages, who you want to involve. But it's not necessarily everybody who is of those collaborators that should be in this project collaborators listed here. And the peer reviewers use this list to see to know if they are partial or not. And they also use it to see whether your group has the strength and all the knowledge and expertise needed for your project. So it's a fine balance between how many you want to put in here because of the collaboration agreements and how the peer reviewers will evaluate your project group and the expertise of the project group. Project duration and budgets. Project period. Again, it was mentioned, Lisa mentioned that you're not allowed to apply if you're in the same, if you have an overlapping project period. And that is the overlapping project period of the original agreement. So if you're delayed, if you have applied for extension of your project, that is not the date that we are looking at, but we are looking at the date where in the original agreement. So it's up to 4 years, and depending on what you're writing here, your total budget or your budget will be written in the 4 or the number of years that you have written here. But just be aware of that. If you change dates here, if you change the dates here, you need to update this change. For example, 2 years only, okay, and then you can see that it's only 2 years here. So, and it will guide you through between which dates you are allowed to select dates for start date and end date. The project should be balanced. It has to be going in zero here, or total expenses and revenues. Also, we want you to specify the running costs associated with the project. That means that everything that is going to be used in this project, not things that you think you might need later, but what you actually have been mentioning under expenses should be specified here. Not in detail, of course, but as an overview. Expenses to be funded by the Norwegian Cancer Society. Here we actually have combined previous two tables. because this is now expenses and you can choose between all the positions and running costs. So either you choose a position or and running costs. So as you see here, when you choose running costs, these are blanked out and you only need to write the cost. I think is it in thousands or is it the total? I don't remember. I don't know. Oh, that was a little bit too much. So this makes it easier for you to sort of specify all the total costs from research positions and to from positions to running costs. And it's easier for us to follow up in your project's reports later. Justify the need for the chosen level of expertise. This is just if you need a research position or anything that needs a higher salary and what is ordinary, you need to justify that. You know, that was here, in fact, that is this second one. The first one is justify the need. So if you need a research position, tell what that position is going to do and why you need a research position and not a technical position, for example. So that would be good to have a nice explanation for. Yeah, and other funding, just add where from elsewhere you expect to receive funding. Okay, and then we just have the statement of acknowledgement. So here again, this is sort of your confirmation that you accept that the Norwegian Cancer Society has the right to reject applications that clearly do not meet the formal requirements, that if granted, we have the right to make public the project title in English abstract and popular presentation. Entire information in this application will be disclosed to peer reviewers and user representatives, and that the peer reviewers will base their evaluation solely on the information provided in this application. And the right of appeal is limited. So this is the application. And then we are all done in very short time. So now we want to have your questions. Either to Lisa or me.
I see that we have already received one question from UH. When will we be notified of the final results if the proposals remain on the waiting list? So this process, it's a bit difficult to give a final deadline, but normally you will know whether your waitlisted project will be granted, usually around New Year or early January by the latest, but you could be notified earlier than that.
I have to ask a question to Kristin, if you are here, because do we have? I actually don't know. We have an automatic notifying email going out to all waitlisted when we have sort of closed the this time?
No, not automatically. It's normally you should have been notified about the final results after the waiting list by now. This year we had a very late double financing case, and the process of sending out those letters has just been delayed. But normally I think February is more realistic because we do receive some notifications about double financing in January the year after. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah,
we have another.
Choose one keyword. Oh yes. Choose one keyword. Sorry, research profile. Here we go. I still share. I can see. You select between these ones. So can you see that one? So you will select one of those that comes up when you can't write anything here. because you will find no hits. Yes.
We can see it.
Is there a requirement to elaborate a data management plan prior? No, we can elaborate a data management plan prior or when application granted. So we are not asking for that plan after a granted application. That should be elaborated in the application. Lisa, isn't it?
What's more?
The question of Michael, is there a requirement to elaborate a data management plan prior or when application is granted?
There is no requirement, but of course, anything that can thoroughly outline your project as a whole is, of course, an advantage. The more clearly outlined your project is, the more likely it is to receive a good score.
Oh, I can just see that there are a lot of questions here, so let's see which one we skipped. Our project leaders who applied for the prevention, yeah, that we have answered.
Yeah.
Can you apply for funding?
Wants us to repeat.
Yeah.
So the question is, yes, you can apply for open call.
Then we are at Alexander. Can you apply for funding of expensive analytical work? Oh, no. Positions are necessary. Yes.
Must have at least one position.
These type of grants that we're having, research projects, positions are mandatory.
And I'll see here that we have a question from Mari about the peer review process. Will applications be evaluated simultaneously by several reviewers, or is it only one reviewer who will read the application? No, there are several. Every application will be reviewed by one in-depth reviewer and one in-depth 2 reviewer. These will be the ones who will be working in fields the most closely to your own project. And additionally, the rest of the peer review committee group will give a general evaluation. So a minimum of 4 reviewers will read your application. Most likely it will be 6.
Do we choose ourselves if applying to Rosa Sløy for open call, or do you choose based on the application content? Yes, we do. So we have decided to put Rosa Sløy and open call into the same call this year. So actually, hardly the peer reviewers will think, or we will think about whether it's applied for one or another of those calls, because it's the same call. So what we will do is just to pick out the ones relevant for Rosa Sløy. And then the other calls listed or ranked by the peer reviewers will sort of jump up. So yes, we will just pick out ourselves. But of course, it would be convenient for you if you think that your application is highly relevant for this, that should be clear in the abstract and in the project description, of course. So it would be easy for us to see that, oh, this is relevant.